My father, Wally Yonamine, was born in Olowalu, Maui, and he was the first Japanese American to play, for the National Football League for the San Francisco 49ers. Fast forward, he switches from football to baseball. 1951, he ends up in Tokyo, and he's the first American to ever play baseball in Japan after the war.
He was one of Hawaii's greatest sports figures. He was also somebody that introduced to Japan American-style baseball. That contribution that Wally Yonamine made to Japanese baseball was revolutionary.
Since he moved over to Japan, I was born and raised there, along with my two sisters, and I grew up in Tokyo. It was an interesting upbringing, because Japan was, and during those times, was still emerging as an economic power. And I think I got to experience it, from how Japan used to be, used to be very polluted. Things didn't necessarily work as they do today. I'm talking about the infrastructure. And over the years, I saw this emerging country and how things changed, and it was quite an experience for me. Given what my father did, it was my lifelong ambition to also become a professional baseball player.
Yeah, I met Paul almost 45 years ago at the University of San Francisco. I thought that he was going to be a jock, that he was going to join the baseball team at USF.
So my original major was in physical education. I was still pursuing a career in baseball, but my second year after I finally decided to give it up, I was in Japan over that summer, and I took on a job teaching English at a Japanese accounting firm. And that was the first time I was introduced to the profession of accounting and auditing. And so when I came back to the University of San Francisco for my third year, I decided I'd better start majoring in something that I could really make a living out of it, and I selected accounting. Back then, KPMG used to be called Pete Marwick Mitchell and Company. And so at the age of 21, I joined as a brand new accountant there. There were a lot of Japanese companies coming into Southern California, and many of these people couldn't speak any English. And they'd go to the same restaurant, they'd order the same thing every day. I had clients who ate hamburgers, for lunch and dinner almost every day because they were intimidated, to order anything else on the menu. So, during the day, my job was to audit and provide accounting services, but I did a lot more than that. I'd help them at restaurants, introducing them to new experiences, helping them rent their apartment, helping them buy a car. I did a lot of things beyond accounting, but I enjoyed it. After several years, Japanese firms were doing really well in the US. And they would come to me and they'd say, "Oh, Mr. Yonamine, auditing is very important, but can you also help us? We want to buy some real estate. We want to buy a company." And so what I found myself becoming was a high-priced interpreter. I would be between a Japanese executive who had all those needs and all of the local, national resources, the experts and the specialists, on the other hand, and I would try to bridge that. And I really felt that I was doing, both sides of the ocean a favor by doing that. So that took me from accounting. It took me into management consulting, took me into systems integration, and that was my experience running IBM Japan.
He has risen to very significant positions in the business sector. So Paul was the president of IBM Japan, which is really a remarkable accomplishment. And yet Paul always maintained and nurtured the relationships that he had at all different levels: business, government, nonprofit.
Even though he might not have been as great an athlete as his father, certainly in the business world is a champion, because he's been able to bring to Japan a lot of the ways of how business is done in America that has helped companies in Japan also become much more competitive and successful as global companies. Well, Paul has always had a connection with Hawaii, but after he ended his position as president of IBM Japan, Dwayne Kurisu, who's a longtime friend of Paul's, recruited him.
And he said, "You ever going to come back to Hawaii?" And so I said, "Of course I want to come back to Hawaii, but I'm just not ready to retire. I need to do something that's productive, and if it's good for the community, I'd come back in a heartbeat." And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. I got a phone call from Dwayne, from John Dean, and Catherine No, and inviting me to come back to Hawaii to become CEO of the holding company. And it was just an offer I couldn't refuse. So that's what brought me back to Hawaii.
Paul's a tremendous asset to Hawaii because of his bicultural background. The fact that he's proven himself as a successful business person in America and also in Japan is tremendously unique. There are very few people that you can point to that have had that kind of experience who are accessible to us in Hawaii.
Certainly, I think because of his upbringing and his parents' love for Hawaii as well, Paul has a very strong affinity to the important role that Hawaii plays in the U.S.-Japan relationship.
He can not only help advise policymakers in Hawaii about how to engage with Japan in the right way, he can also help influence Japanese companies to consider Hawaii.
I think he's absolutely a bridge, and he's connected this city with Japan, and particularly businesses in Tokyo. And he's now connecting this city by bringing businesses from Japan here in his new role as the CEO of Central Pacific Bank. He's helped tremendously here in the city and county of Honolulu in terms of bringing us closer to Japanese business. When I would spend time with him, and we'd be before some of the largest corporations in Japan, before their board, watching him discuss with the board issues important to Honolulu and introducing me as mayor. The word I use is elegant, and in a way that is comfortable, I think, for the Japanese national who we're meeting with, but also very comfortable for me as someone from the United States of America. He knows how to balance those two and to get this connection that I've never seen before.
He's a role model for many other younger Japanese Americans especially, and is an example of where one person can make a difference in forging many of those types of relationships.
I really hope that there's going to be a lot of Japanese Americans, the younger generations, who come up the pipe, to play that role as an important bridge, between the two countries. And I think through organizations like JASH, people get to know people. And all of us who've been in business or run organizations, we all know it's always up to the people. One would think that I've been in very different companies or industries. The underlying similarity is that it's always been in service, and it's always been about trying to bring together Japanese businesses and American businesses.
Great things are going to continue to happen because of Paul Yonamine.
Well, congratulations, Paul. This is a well-deserved recognition, and I think that hopefully a lot of people will get to know you better and will appreciate the fact that we're lucky to have you as part of our community here in Hawaii.